What do you think of when you think of a manager? Did your boss just pop into your head? Did you think of the last time he humiliated you during a team call, or the many times when you did all the work and he or she just handed it off to the supervisor or clients without giving you any credit? If you didn't have that scenario popping in your head, I would say you have been pretty lucky so far, and probably had some really good managers. But most of us aren't that lucky. Personally, I had the luck of having a really great boss at my first job. One that would build me up and motivate me, but also give me constructive criticism in the areas where I could improve. He was someone I truly admire as a manager, because he did a darn good job at it. He showed me how comfortable and confident you can feel in your position and your work. But new opportunities came knocking at my door, and I was eager for a change. But the new boss was nothing like my old one. He had a short temper and micromanaged, quickly knocking my self-confidence down a few pegs. So you may ask why I want to talk about why being a manager isn't easy. It's simple, because I really believe in that statement. I think being a manager is hard work, and a lot of the time they do work you can't see but feel. So even if there are many who may not excel at it, it would be just as wrong to undermine the effort that it takes to be a manager. I experienced that with the second manager I mentioned. After a few difficult months, he started to realize he could trust in my willingness to work, that errors were out of my not knowing instead of not caring, and that you really do catch more flies with honey. And exactly that is part of being a manager. But I get ahead of myself. This and much more will be discussed in detail now. So welcome to Rebel Economics. I'm super excited to welcome you to a new episode. Today, we'll be discussing all the reasons why being a manager is hard work. I hope you enjoy it, and maybe it can help you cut your own manager a little slack. If you like our content, please consider liking and subscribing. It would mean a lot. Working with people is difficult, but it can also be incredibly rewarding. Either they become the bane of your existence or your core motivation. As a manager, one of your main tasks is dealing with people. Making sure that they do their job, they do it well and on time. You are the go-to person for any issue, whether it is an unhappy client or internal squabbles. You have to balance the interests of your people and the interests of the company. So you see, there's a whole lot that a manager can do wrong, and a very tight line he or she has to walk. For your employees, you are the one who gets to decide over their performance. So you become someone they want to please, as well as someone they fear a little. After all, you have the power, and being the subordinate is a role most people don't love. As such, you need to give feedback, and we all know the term constructive criticism, but giving it can be far more difficult than it may sound. Really helping someone understand where their work may be lacking takes a lot of tact, and also requires you to hone in on your people skills. Every worker reacts differently, so to do your job well as a manager, you need to not only understand what type of manager you are or want to be, but also how that will mesh with your employees' personalities. Things such as the predictive index test or the high five test may give you insights into how your people work and what motivates them. It shows you if they need a more hands-on management style, or if that would make them feel controlled and disgruntled. Some people thrive when frequently praised. Others start to slack off if you give them approval too freely. As people are at the core of your work, a manager should also work on his or her people skills, as well as understanding the dynamics of the team and preferences of each individual worker. That takes a lot of fine-tuning, and also a lot of self-reflection. Because while you may know what type of manager you are, it is really important that you can adjust that to the needs of each individual person to create the most motivated team. Going hand in hand with my first point, there's a lot of invisible work that a manager does. With invisible work, I mean all the things that happen behind the scenes, all the phone calls and meetings a manager may have with others in the company, clients, potential clients, the hours of planning and overseeing that make it seem like the manager isn't really working. But this is the work that ensures that the team is running smoothly, but it is work that does not actively generate output. As a manager, you will likely no longer be working in your craft, but will manage people who do the tasks that you once did. This can be a difficult step to take, and one that may also leave a manager feeling isolated. And while technically they stand at the helm of the team, they may feel a lot more like a supporting actor than a leader. And that's exactly what a manager's role is in many ways. It's supportive. As a manager, you're there to make sure the external factors are favorable so your team can work smoothly. This includes everything from taking the blow from disgruntled clients, defending your team's work to your own higher-ups, keeping an eye out for new opportunities, and many other difficult tasks. And while much of that makes a manager's work focused on factors outside the team, he or she still has to do everything I mentioned in my first point about working with people, figuring them out, and how to best deal with them. A study shows that a manager should be spending 6 hours per week actively with the team. This doesn't need to be one-on-one time, it doesn't even need to be in person, but it's time that the manager actively spends on trying to solve issues of the team and with the team. Allowing for this time of active and quality communication, you can understand the needs of your employees better, and instead of being removed from them, you become a part of the team. The team captain for sure, but that too is being part of the team. So you have done all of these things. You understand exactly how to interact with your employees to get them motivated, keep them happy in their job, and make time for open communication so that your team perceives you more like a team captain than an outsider supervising them. That is great, but there is one really important thing that a manager still needs to do. One that, like the others, is hard work and often gets underestimated. You are the link between higher-ups of the company and other branches of the company as well as between people in your team and clients. So when shit hits the fan, you're the one they will go to. You will need to deal with that in a way that meets their needs while not throwing your team under the bus. Let's say a client is unhappy because he wanted part of the project done by this week, but a delay of 2 weeks has snuck in because your team required more specification from the client and parts of the implementation were just more time intensive than initially thought. No one is really at fault here. The client may not understand what it takes to complete the task they hired you for, because otherwise they would just do it themselves. But your team also has worked really hard and done its best with the guidelines provided. That's where you come in as a manager. It's important that you don't just tell your team that the task should have been already done. That makes you a bad manager because you should know at what stage they are and where the delay is coming from. But, of course, you can't blame the client for not understanding the complexities of your task. And in the end, the customer is king, and your job is to make him happy. So you see it's complicated to walk the line. Err on one side, and the whole thing comes crashing down. Thanks for watching today's episode on why being a manager isn't easy. I know that as an employee, it is easy to see the manager as the bad guy, as the person just making your life a little harder than it needs to be. But managers have it hard too, and a lot of their work is never actually seen by their employees. They might slave away, but from below you see only a tiny little fraction of it. If you enjoyed today's video, please like and subscribe. And if you want more business topics, we got them right here for you. Why not check out our video on why corporate culture is a trap, or about how consultancies work. See you next time here on Rebel Economics.